YouTube, and let's see if that works. There's a chance that we can only be live on one thing at the time. I don't know.
What? Well, you can always post it later on the other one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this is good. I think this is gonna work fine. I think this is gonna work fine. But we'll
These
see.
are
I'm
famous
just,
last words, by the
that's
way.
true. That's true. But one thing, you know what? I'm gonna try to also record it on Loom, just the screen on Loom, so that I can at least have the video side by side recorded also on another source. And I think that will help us. Okay. So we are, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
loud and clear.
So, hi everyone. Sorry for the weird intro of us setting things, putting things in motion. But we are now we are now ready to go on the air with my friend Fade Rudnitsky. So
Hi, everyone.
Fade is a human being, a designer, an experienced designer, a musician, a volunteer EMT, and just all in all, like a super interesting person who I think I think it'd be cool to hear from him, especially these days. Welcome, Fade.
Thank you so much for the kind words. It's a pleasure being here.
Cool. And I see the guitar behind you and some art.
It's actually a case of a guitar.
Nice.
Both guitars are on the wall in the living room, and the painting was actually done by my girlfriend. She's a very talented artist.
Very
So
cool.
yes, yeah, it sounds really weird, like the way you introduce me. It's actually what's written on my website, but when somebody else says it, it's like, really? So what do you do? It's like, what? Haven't you decided yet? What do you want to do?
You know what? I'm old enough to know that that's bullshit. A lot of my favorite people can't easily encapsulate what they do, and I think it's because they do they do themselves, and what that is many things creatively, but their brain happened to work that way. And I'm the same. Like, so a lot of my friends are the slashes, designer slash.
Yeah.
I don't have many friends who are just one thing. And if they are, they're usually conflicted about it and are not very happy with what they chose, or they're having second thoughts.
No, well, that's a known issue, at least on my side. I've been trying to, going back and forth between different things that I've always done. Didn't even mention the fact that I was broadcasting on an FM radio for 3 years. And so I've done a lot of things, and I was kind of moving back and forth between them. Until at some point, I just understood that these are just my ways of communicating something which is bigger. And so for the past year and a half, perhaps, I've been trying to clarify what it is, that thing that is like the common denominator between all these.
Right.
And these are just tools like visual design, music, my Medium blog. Everything that I do is these are just different channels that I use to, bring out whatever ideas I have, whatever messages I want to send out to the world. And yeah, so it's kind of, I'm on a pretty good place myself, from the point that it doesn't feel to me like there are too many things right now.
Right.
It just makes sense. It just makes sense. It's like a puzzle pieces that I finally starting to get together into one clear picture.
So yeah. So I guess um, if you had to um, say what is this one thing, and then we'll go through all your different activities. But if you had to say what, how does it all come together in your mind? Um, is there an idea that you wish to express, or is there a way that your brain works that kind of expresses itself in all of these different activities? What is that integrating factor?
Right. So I think that the common denominator between all of these is that I really believe in humans. I I love humans. I love um, the way people communicate with each other, the value that we are able to bring to each other, um, and and I see on the other hand, I see that the things that are happening in the world bring a lot of stress into our lives. Even pre COVID-19, we're living in a constant race, chasing different things, and these things change uh, sometimes every day. And then we go to our Facebook feed and we see all these things that are happening, and they require our attention. And so there's a lot of stress going on. And eventually, one of the biggest results of this thing is that we don't have enough capacity to be compassionate. We don't have enough capacity to maintain relationships in a way, um, like, being in that conversation when you're speaking to somebody, without your phone taking away your attention every couple of seconds. And so relationships worsen, and people are getting less happier, and and they're and so I think that perhaps the most pure human element, which is relationships, goes away. And so I want to bring that back. I want to try and bring more balance into people's lives. I want to try. I think I'm kind of even on a mission to bring humanity back, to bring compassion back, and so hoping people will be able to, live lives which are more meaningful and more empathetic, and be kind to one another, and be compassionate. This is so. If I would state the one like thing that covers everything that I do, that would be the main goal.
To bring humanity back. Um,
Yeah, kind of.
and is it back from where? Is it just back from because of technology that we're seeing the damages that always being connected is creating, or is it something deeper than that, like something about our just our mindset, or where do you think where's the main threat
I think that
coming?
that all the all the lame stuff that we have in the world is in our minds, because we build all these great tools which dramatically improve our lives, and then the second after we done with them, we turn them into something that is bigger from the purpose of life itself. So we have connected all the people in the world through Facebook, and that is a great tool. And then we find ourselves just scrolling endlessly in our feed, watching other people who try to show a picture of them being happy while they're not really, and giving us that impression of fake lives that are not really happening. And so there goes your snowball, which
Yeah.
turns people into creatures who compare themselves to others constantly, and measure themselves by, I'm sorry, measuring ourselves. We do that all the time. I do that all the time, trying to cure that still.
Sure.
And we're measuring ourselves through thresholds and bars, which are not real.
Sure.
And so we have these great tools, but then the second the tools start controlling our minds and not the other way around, that's when the problem starts. And it's been like that for decades. It's always
Yeah.
been like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I feel like there's this saying, the medium is the message, um,
Hmm.
where essentially, and this is something that I'm coming to realize recently, is like the medium that we live in is shaped by the technology, by the pipes, to a much larger extent than we realize. And when printed books came out, it changed the culture. Gutenberg, it changed the culture in a certain way. Then newspapers, then telegraph, then telephone, then radio and TV,
Right.
and it just massively affects how we think of ourselves and our society, and how we communicate with other people. And I actually think we are not fully, we keep talking about the internet, being so important, but we're not fully recognizing how much it is reshaping us, and how we think of everything, and how we become grouped right into like our, we have our group, and the tribes are now not localized, but so you can easily become part of a tribe that's global, that's has an extreme opinion and never hear from anyone else. um, and I'm very, very concerned about this, both on the psychological personal level, but also on how does it affect politics, how does it affect identity, how does it, I mean, it's like we're running this massive experiment on ourselves in real time, and we've no idea what the effects are
Which
going to
is
be.
failing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and with
um,
no control, by the way. There's no control. We're just saying, okay, everybody is online now.
yeah, politics is probably um, one of the ways we can clearly see that mirror that was created in front of us. Um, and you see, and you ask yourself, you look at Trump, and then you say like your initial reaction, like imagine you wouldn't have known any history about how he was elected, or haven't heard anything about it. You just went, you've been living in a desert for
Right.
for a decade. You came out, you turn on your TV, and you see Trump. The initial response would probably be like, what? Really? Is that really? It's really happening right now? And right now it's a norm. It became
Yeah.
kind of a norm. And because you see the majority of people are voting. You can see that in different countries. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think so it's interesting, and I don't want to get into politics too much because it's not that
yeah,
interesting.
let's not. Yeah.
But I will say, I feel like we might be underestimating. Um, so Trump is like a symptom, and the question is, a symptom of what, right? And I think what seems to do that when people are saying it's populism, right? It's this notion of like the people's will, and want someone to kind of cater to the popular lower common denominator.
Yeah.
Um, and that seems to be happening everywhere in the world. And um, but I think with Trump, it's a combination. Like the internet plays such a huge role, because I think this is going to sound so bad, but if somebody is a Trump supporter, I'm sorry. But in the past, to have political power, you needed some form of organization. You need to be intelligent and coherent enough to create an organization where large numbers of people work very well together and plan. And in, you know, a party or a newspaper or, you know, something. And I think what the internet did was to allow that piece to be freely given to anyone so that there could be highly sophisticated, structurally very sophisticated organizations created entirely by stupid people. There's nobody, like all of these mass movements that are formed, there's no mastermind. There's nobody thinking this is where we want to go and this is our goal and this is how we're going to get there. It's generally just a lot of people being stupid together online and reinforcing each other.
Well, there are 2 points to consider here. One is I truly believe that you're underestimating the powers that are standing behind these people. The whole election campaign, the way it was taken care of, the way it was escalated, it can't be random. I mean, these are the biggest minds were utilized to allow that to happen.
Oh no, I agree with that, but I think even those powers that be that kind of supported that, Trump wasn't their candidate of choice. It just somehow they got stuck. Trump was the candidate of the Republican Party, and then all of those powers came in.
Yeah, he was the loudest, and this comes to the instant gratification that we're looking for in everything that we see, right? You have on social media, you look for that booming title that'll catch your eye, booming visual that will keep your mind focused on that point because it's dramatic enough, because it's big enough, because it's controversial enough, because it's a story.
Yeah.
And that I think that was Trump's ticket.
Yeah. And those are the pipes too. That's that attention, the competition for attention, and the fact that negative attention still perpetuates the message. That's also part of the pipes. That's part of the algorithm in Facebook, right? If you, whether you send the heart or you send the angry face, you engaged, and that actually increased the post, the visibility of it. But I want to actually, I don't want to get into this is not the most interesting conversation I could have with you. I'm sure that you.
I can easily switch, take that same subject and switch that to music. For instance.
So we could talk about that, but I want to maybe step back and think. Okay, so you said that you're starting to see this pattern of wanting to bring back humanity and wanting to create a space for it and a space for presence for humanity, and across many different fields, many different endeavors. So I want to ask you to go back in life, and as far back as you can go or can think, when did this journey start? What is the earliest point where you can say, oh, this is going to...
That's an interesting question. So there's a difference between when it started and when I started recognizing that it's actually happening. It's so I see that all in retrospect, right? It's something that I've been coming to for the past year and a half or so. I think that I was raised in Ukraine by a very Soviet family, with kindness and politeness in front, being considerate of the people around you and your surroundings and the nature around you. It's something that it's part of my core. and caring about people is something that was like it was really a part of who I am always. My parents are both doctors, and so caring for other humans is kind of came naturally. But they're not only doctors; they're also met because they were playing in their band in a an MD faculty. So they were studying together and they were in a band together.
Nice.
Yeah, my dad was a drummer and my mom was the lead singer and the keyboardist.
Cool.
So that's how music came in. I kind of so I, like I had my parents were doctors, but and on the second hand and at home we're always listening to stuff like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all the greatest music that was really ever
was
created.
that stuff allowed before '89?
So I was born in '86.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So even if it wasn't, I've heard the stories though. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Well, our timelines are I'm a little bit older than you, just enough so that I would have been 9 during the revolution.
Right.
Or what is it called? Was it perestroika or?
Yeah.
Right,
it has many names to it. But the fact is that the Soviet Union was deformed, you'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it so? So you were exposed from a young age to rock and roll and the Beatles. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what's cooler actually, to be growing in that or like to come or from a different, a different kind of maybe religion or something like that you just start discovering that stuff that you never heard of. But today, I met a couple of people who were Orthodox, and so they left. They started living an unorthodox lives at some very old ages of them, and they were just starting, to discover music that I was growing up on, and most of the people know from young ages, and it's very interesting to see the perception of the difference between whether it's something new that you just discovered or something that you know from your childhood, right? It's like food. There are foods that you're used to eat because your mom used to make it, and then if you try that today for the first time, you might have not loved it at all.
Like gefilte fish. There's this whole thing about if you grew up eating gefilte fish, you like it. Yeah, nobody else in the world likes it. Nobody.
For me, it's buckwheat, right? Yeah. And so I love it because I was eating that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And people who are not used to that, and you try to force them to eat buckwheat and at their 20s, they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
Doesn't it have MSG in it?
It's funny because what you were saying is exactly the plot of the movie Yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it's a really funny movie. It's like a really light comedy. You want to tell the plot for a sec, just without spoilers?
I watch it, but yeah, it's the world where everybody forgot the Beatles except for this one guy, and he writes the Beatles.
He's a musician. He's a failed musician.
Yeah, he's a failed musician, and then he releases Beatles songs as his own, and he's a massive success. He becomes the most successful artist in the world. It's a silly movie, but one of the things that
it's a great movie.
It's a really fun movie. It's a fun movie. It's not. I wouldn't call it great, but there's one thing it does really, really well is make you appreciate how awesome the songs are. Because there's this moment in the movie where he just like plays. This is when he realizes that nobody remembers the Beatles.
It's in the trailer even, so it's not even a spoiler. Yeah.
but he plays the yesterday to his girlfriend, and everybody's like shocked, and they're like, "When did you write this?"
Yeah,
And
this is timeless. I'm having
yeah,
goosebumps just to remind myself of that part of the movie, because it's like, this is timeless.
yeah,
These lyrics and these and these compositions are timeless.
yeah.
And so today, when anyone has access to all the tools, this is how I connect the two subjects together, has access to all the tools required to produce music at home. You don't even need to sing well anymore. You don't need to compose music anymore. You can just use ready-made samples or sample other songs
Yeah.
and create a kind of catchy loop of melody and a catchy loop of lyrics. And then if the right team is behind you, if the right record company is behind you, you're all set.
Yeah, interesting. So actually, that let's get back to that story. So growing up, a lot of compassion and taking care of other people, and a lot of great music. And what's the next step in the process?
Well, the biggest, probably one of the biggest shifts in my life is that when we moved to Israel, when I was well, almost 11, and so everything has changed, right? The weather has changed, the climate has changed, the language has changed, everything has changed. The people around me have changed.
How
The
how old were
culture.
you?
11. I was 11.
11. Okay. Okay.
Um, Everything changed so fast and so dramatically. It has brought a lot of change into my life. This is There was, looking back at it, it was pretty much destroying experience.
Okay.
I had a really tough time. The kids at school didn't really like the new guys from different countries different countries who don't speak their language. I didn't have any kids in the school in the entire school that spoke either Russian or Ukrainian. I had two. One of them was actually born in Israel, so he didn't speak any Russian almost at all. And the other kid was like three months in Israel, so he came like 3 months before me. So we kind of been in the same state, both of us. And so I stopped making music. I didn't use computer before I came to Israel, and we didn't have any computers back there. And so I was like, just went alone into my like small room, which was not really a room because there were like 5 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And so here's the computer. There's stuff that I can do with it. It's nice. I can play games. There's the internet. That's nice. Oh yeah, we can dial up and hear that voice and hear that sound. And so it took me a couple of years to kind of get back on my feet. I gained a lot of weight. I went out of shape entirely, both physically and mentally. And at some point, a couple of years after that, there was this school which had like arts, design, how do you say that? You could study design for like part of your SATs, right? And then it was nice because I was drawing every now and then as a kid. And so I started studying design. And while doing that, I somehow started working with customers. Um, Somewhere between those years, my dad died. And it's a different tragical story. Um, and it was really traumatic for me. And because, but just to give you the TLDR, my dad committed suicide at our home.
Oh,
And I was the one who found him when I
wow.
was 14 years old. And so another shift in my life. And then
That
so I, yeah,
that is powerful, but it's also um, with the right kind of for the right kind of person. That's a very shaping experience. I mean, you can take it just as pure trauma, or you can build yourself from it. And I,
yeah, I didn't have the tools back then to
yeah,
understand that it's something meaningful, that it's going to change my life, that I'm going to grow up and be a better person, a better spouse, a better whatever. I didn't know that. I can only appreciate that in retrospect.
yeah,
Um, and and so I started learning design, started working with customers already in high school. I had real customers. I was making
wow,
logos and business cards and print because no websites were still there really. It was not as accessible of a medium. Um,
that explains it because you're younger than me, but you're so good and experienced. Like it feels like you've been doing this forever. Um, and
yeah,
of course,
it's
that
been a
means that
long time.
you started, yeah, probably like 15 years before I did, or getting into design. And
Yeah,
I've been doing this for many years, many years too. Wow.
yeah. I think that my first real job, like full time job, as a web designer was in 2004.
Okay.
A full
Okay.
time job, not talking projects that I took on as a freelancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's really early. And I skipped the army service, which is mandatory in Israel. Um, and so I was kind of I was always an outcast from that perspective because in Israel um, you have this normal order of a teenager's life. You graduate at 18, go to the army for 3 years. You get out of the army, you probably go to some distant vacation somewhere in India or Thailand
Yeah. Go
and
crazy for a year somewhere.
go crazy for a year somewhere else. You lose yourself, you find yourself again, hopefully. You get back and then you start studying in a university to get a degree. And so you invest a couple of more years for that. And then somewhere in your late 20s, you're trying to figure out, okay, so what I'm going to do, like what I want to really do for a living. Um, and I had a really different path. I skipped the army. I never went to get a degree, never felt the need to. Um, so I just started living my life, but not having a same aged people around me. I was always working with people who are way older than I was.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's like kind of being a forever social outcast. Um,
It's funny because you're one of the popular guys in my perception of when we met at a WeWork, and you're one of the cool people that get along with everybody.
See,
Um,
that's interesting to hear because it's one of the differences between how we see people, how we want to see them, and how we are reflecting our own thoughts and feelings on other people. Because for the first couple of months in that WeWork location where we actually met, I was
right.
struggling. I was like, I'm not really, it's supposed to be a co-working space. I'm not really meeting people. I'm not really getting to know other people. It's like, am I weird? Is it weird? Is it supposed to be like that? Is it like, these
Mm.
are the questions that we should never ask ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
how is it perceived? Is it good? Is it bad?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be like that? Instead
Yeah.
of just saying, okay, that's me. I've always, it always took me time to develop enough trust in other people to become friendly with them and be authentic with them. And
Yeah.
like the only thing that I can only be is be an authentic me. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Because we always have this influences around us, and we have these expectations, and we have these different things that are surrounding us and are affecting how we behave. And it takes a really solid personality to stay stable at what you are and to
Yeah.
show that. And so, and the funny fact is that people get authentically appreciated only when that happens. It's like
Yeah.
when you stop trying be someone else, and you find out how you can just be yourself. This is where you discover who's really worth your attention. This is how you can actually start listening to other people and getting to know them truly. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm still working on that. Like, I'm always like that in new surroundings.
Mm.
I can chit chat, but only if you start.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Interesting. No, I'm usually the person starting the chit chat because I just found I know I just like being around people that I already spoke to, as opposed to people that I haven't spoken to.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. It's like, uh, yeah. Let me make your face and voice familiar, so that next time I talk to you, it's gonna be familiar for me. Yeah.
Yeah, or even just like I do this is has not always been like this at all, but in recent years I've been flying a lot, and so if there's someone sitting next to me, I'm gonna start a conversation immediately, and it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be long. It could be 5 minutes, but it just makes the flight so much better because now I have two friends. I have a friend on each side instead of like a stranger on each side, and you get more freedom of movement, and you get like you sort of or you can ask for a little favor, or um, and yeah, and some, and sometimes you get a date out of it or something like, but
How did you get there? I mean, how you said you weren't always like that.
um, I think I think it's probably it coincides with meditation, and specifically one type of meditation that actually most people don't know about, which is metta. Have you ever heard of metta meditation?
Mm, no, I don't think so. I haven't.
So everybody knows mindfulness, which
Right.
is kind of sati mindfulness meditation. It's from the oldest tradition of Buddhism, but from the same tradition in the same time, there was another form of meditation, metta meditation, which is in English usually translated as loving kindness meditation, but it's actually, I mean, you could also translate it as friendliness meditation. And essentially, it's about gradually wishing well for more and more
Yeah.
people. Just
I just didn't know the name, but I know that. Yeah.
but
I've
you
heard the
start with
technique.
yourself. You start with yourself, and then you expand it, and so this is metta, METTA, and so I actually that was actually the more I think about my life, the more this was more radical than all the mindfulness meditation I did because one of the first effects of even just doing it a couple of times. So one is I am far less afraid of other people because I really generally understand that they're just trying to do their best and trying to survive in a difficult world. And even if someone comes to rob me, they're not doing it because they're evil. They're, for the most part, they're doing it because they are hungry and desperate. Um, and so you become more relaxed with other people, but then also you see suddenly people that you haven't noticed before,
Yeah.
and you kind of um, so one of the things that I actually said in the previous conversation, which is interesting, is um, people of other. I was in New York when I started this, and I was taking an 8-week course in New York City in Manhattan, and I remember very distinctly coming out of the meditation and seeing people of different races and different ethnicities for almost like for the first time. Not that I didn't see them, but now I was like, so I actually have this very clear memory that I was leaving and there was this older Black woman carrying a really heavy bag and going somewhere. And I just remember coming out of that meditation, I was still in this weird meditation high. And I was thinking, oh, she looks like she's tired and she's like, this is heavy for her or
Mhm.
something. And I guarantee you that she would be almost invisible to me before getting into meditation. Not because I'm evil, but because you're kind of programmed to look at what you're used to, and you kind of look at the people that you know how to parse, and so from that moment on, actually, just seeing as people wherever I go, it's a bigger and bigger part of my daily experience. Um, but it took like that little exercise, that little thing.
You just need a little
Uh,
push. Yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing. It sounds like an amazing feeling. Like how much of your time you feel that you're totally in the moment? Is it all the time? Is it most of the time? Is it rarely? Does it depend on
Um,
circumstances?
I define in the moment because you could define it in
You're
different ways.
completely aware of um, whatever is happening around you. You're attentive to it, and um, you have this like you lack the automatic responses that we're used to, but instead you can really absorb what's happening, the full meaning of what's happening around you.
Okay, so I'll translate it to the way I think about it. But there's to be in a state of mindfulness to me is not just to be aware of what's outside, but at the same time of what's inside.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this at the same time as being aware of the world. And that's a very high bar. And so if I'm trying to be honest with myself, how much of my day is that? It's during meditation, it's during walking, and it's moments throughout the day, usually in between activities.
Mhm.
But when I'm working, I'm not really aware too much of my internal space, except as it pertains to what I'm doing. Um, when I'm sitting and talking to someone, it's much more that I'm much more fully with them and fully and with how I'm reacting, with how I'm feeling. But yeah, but if I'm like in this during this Corona time, most of the time I'm doing something and I'm not too aware whether if because I have a pretty good schedule, but when I'm watching the news, I'm not mindful. When I'm working, I'm not mindful. When I'm listening to an audiobook while cooking, I'm not really mindful because I'm cooking. I'm aware of the cooking and I'm aware of audiobook,
Right.
but I'm not aware of what's going on inside too much. Whereas I think it is possible to be always aware of everything. I'm just not at that level.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like when we work, when we do our work, our ability to accomplish um, better results and faster results is tied. It's tightly connected to our ability to focus. You know, our ability to be there in the zone of working on whatever that is, and it's kind of a constant battle, I think, that we have these days, most of us, the ability to simply focus on one task, the ability to focus on something specific that we're doing right now without being interrupted by either external sources of interruption, like social media or phones or people around us, but also within us. Like, you know, we think of something else while we work on something.
Yeah.
I think it's like I'm not even talking on an ADHD level, right? I'm talking way before that hits a clinically proven level.
Yeah.
Uh, it's probably one of the biggest challenges, I think, today, with the attention span going so short. Um,
Yeah. So I actually don't have that problem so much. So I separate between um, concentration, concentration slash focus and mindfulness. I think they're
okay,
different things, also in Buddhism, but also in kind of my experience of things. Um, I have very high levels of concentration. I can work for hours on end, not be distracted. It's fine, but during that time, am I aware of my internal states? Am I aware that I'm thinking? Am I aware that I'm working? Probably not. It's actually not a very mindful
it's a
state.
different state.
It's a
It's
it's a flow state, which
it's a
is
flow
not
state.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so it's interesting. So wait, how do we get there? How what
How to get where?
to mindfulness and being concentrated?
Um, um, how did we get there in this conversation? I'm not sure. Um, I think it's for me. It's battle. It's a game of scales all the time.
Mm,
Um, Especially doing as many things that as I try to accomplish during the same 24 hours that we all have. It's really, you gotta be sharp about what's top priority right now.
yeah,
What's what's the next most important thing that I have to do to make sure that I advance in a specific goal that I have predefined for myself, and that's where productivity comes in.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So this is actually so relevant right now. So this is Make Time by the same guy who wrote the Sprint book.
yeah,
The same two guys, Jake Knapp and John Zaratsky. Uh, but one takeaway from this, which I really, really fully embrace, is deciding every morning what your highlight for the day is going to be, just one thing that you're going to defend at any cost from interruptions and surrounding. And it could be something that you just do for 2-3 hours, but you making a commitment early in the day to say, no matter what, this gets done. Um,
yeah. It's every kind of um, there are many common things between different productivity techniques and books, and I've listened to so many for the last
yeah,
couple of years. I'm a big fan of David Allen and getting things done.
yep,
Um, there are many productivity books that we can, later I can send you links. You can post it over to the Remake Labs page, perhaps, because these are really great recommendations that I think that have made my life so much more precise, methodic, and disciplined. And it starts from, getting things done, the one thing, and also the 5 a.m. club, which I'm part of and have been part of for the last couple of months.
Wait, the 5 a.m. club. You're the second person to mention this to me in the last couple of days. So what is that?
So it's a method developed. I can't recall the names. I'm very bad at those, and I'm sorry about that. But if you look it up, you'll find it immediately. So the 5 a.m. club, it's a basic set of rules on how you can live a more productive life. It starts with you gotta sleep 8 hours a night.
Okay.
And you wake up by, let's say, 5 a.m. And your first hour is divided into 20, 20, 20. The first 20 minutes go to physical activity. You gotta get yourself to actually sweat, like harsh physical activity. So it's body. The next 20 minutes are for your soul. This is meditation or just relaxing, just, reflecting on whatever you have in your life.
It's a Robin Sharma book. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. And the last 20 minutes are for learning. It's for your mind. It's learning something new. Mainly because after doing the physical and mental activity, your mind is most receptive to learning new stuff. And the last rule is that 1 hour before you go to sleep, you got to disconnect from any screens or social media or TV or whatever. So if you want to, so say for instance, me and my spouse are using this last hour in the day to walk the dogs and to, just sit and kind of reflect on the day that has passed. And it really brought a lot of discipline and balance to my life. And so when I start working in the morning, which is usually around 8 a.m., after I've done with this routine, plus walking the dogs for a dog park for an hour, and then making breakfast, and then sitting and eating the breakfast. And so when I start working, it's 8 to 8:30 a.m.
Interesting.
And that the fact that I had this routine made it so much easier for me during the Corona time because I still had this discipline to stick to. I didn't go into that, let me just sleep in mode or anything. So I'm not doing that every morning. I don't do that on weekends. And this is kind of my hack. And lately I moved it from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. But it's basically the same. I don't like waking up before sunrise.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not fun. So I'm moving it as the daylight saving times change, etc. But in general, the basic rules are still there. I still get 8 hours of sleep. Like 95% of the time, I can actually commit to that. And 1 hour before I go to sleep, I shut off all these screens. And then in the morning, I have like my 20-20-20. And this gives me kind of, it's like a kickstart for your whole body and mind. And it just works for me. It just works really well for me.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah.
That sounds really similar to what I started doing during Corona. Mine is kind of more forgiving in some ways and maybe less forgiving in some other ways. But I started waking up every day at 7 a.m., it's like my 5 a.m. because I used to wake up at like 10 or 11. I do like a 20-minute walk around I have a beautiful yard and there's trees on this block. I meditate, but I meditate for longer. I meditate for 45 minutes. just because it takes more than 20 minutes to even for me to even start meditating. I sit
Yeah,
down and
get into it.
uh, and then um, and then I play the violin for half an hour every day. All of this before sitting down to work. And even when I sit down to work, the first hour is supposed to be writing blog posts instead of like
Hmm.
just working.
That's really
But
cool.
yeah,
I think that one of the
the mood is phenomenal. The mood is in
yeah
the mood improves tremendous because before I was getting sucked into like the news cycle and just like not really having a routine. And once I started doing this, I actually had the best maybe the best month in a long time.
yeah, and here's the thing. We were speaking earlier about the pitfalls of humanity and how we misuse existing tools and the, how we find the sides which are not necessarily positive in different things. And here's the thing: if you read all the productivity books and all the meditation books and you go to all the possible retreats, you will probably find you will come to find that first there is no such thing as uh, one true. There is no one truth. There is no one correct way of doing things. Um, and because you see that um, eventually what's the most important thing is to find what works best for you, not necessarily follow a specific cult or set of rules, which is
Right.
how cults become what they are, because people follow rules without thinking by themselves. Um, and then and then the other thing is that you will eventually find that all these things have so much in common. The physical health, how it's connected and wired, deep wired to your mental health, and vice versa, and mindfulness and meditation and productivity practices and these like thinking hacks and the way we manage ourselves. All these things, you can see the patterns. You can see that there is there are probably basic set of rules that you can follow, which are not, let's say, ground rules. Maintaining a healthy diet and having an active way of life, having physical activity in your life, and sleeping enough because we like physically need it. Actually, our brain actually
Yeah.
needs it.
Yeah.
Like, and you get to this basic set of rules, and then you can see that um, all the rest is just different interpretations of the same and different tries on how we can frame that into a specific method so that we can call it ours, so we can brand it, how we put that under a religion, how we put that under a book, how we put that under anything else. But that basically, it's so there are many common things.
Yeah.
Um, and the best place that you can, as a human being, in my opinion, you can get to is that when you understand what works for you and why. So for me, getting up early, way before I discovered 5 a.m. Club, it started from a whole different perspective. I was living in a very urban area with a lot of noise around me. And so when I was waking up at around 8 or 9 a.m., the whole city was in the rush already. It's like
Right.
I woke up and immediately all the noise was there and other people were rushing the streets. And and I was immediately waking up into a chaos.
Right.
Um,
It's not fun.
and, and so during my volunteering as an EMT, from time to time, I was doing night shifts. And so night shift starts at 11 p.m., ends at 7 a.m. And then suddenly we have a break between calls around 4 or 5 a.m., there was this time that the city just starts moving and everything starts and the sun rises slowly and you like get to wake up with the city. You you get to witness that happening slowly, and so you have time. I had time to adjust. My body,
Right.
my mind, my stomach had time to adjust to that. And so then I realized that, yeah, it would probably be nice um, to try and synchronize my own tempo with whatever's happening around me. And that's why I started waking up earlier than 8 a.m. And
Mm.
so I tried different times, I tried different methodics, etc. But eventually, I came from that place where I started crystallizing what works for me.
Mm.
And that happened without reading any book, without anything. It's just I was lucky enough to be able to realize that.
You have a designer perspective, and I think a lot of what we do, um, you and I don't know how many other people have the bandwidth and mindset to do it, is to constantly be designing and redesigning our lives. And I know a lot of good people who do this, but I also know a lot of people who just do whatever everybody else does because it's not a criticism. It's easier for them, so they're like, I'm fine with this. Is this when we get up? Okay, I am.
Yeah, it's
Um,
called a comfort zone.
and I think this is what religions are trying to do. So one defense of religion in response to your maybe implied criticism is that when you're not relying on any external authority or precedent, you're much more likely to keep changing your mind and to not be able to stick to anything. Where in many of these things, it's the sticking to something that's more important than that thing being perfect. So having any sort of schedule that makes room for these essentials is, since sticking to it is more important than the schedule being completely perfect. Um,
Yeah, I
and
can relate
so
to that.
and
Definitely.
and and it's very hard as an atheist to persist in anything, and even in meditation, um, oh, I'm not like, because I'm not religious, oh, let me sample this little like Theravada practice and this little Zen practice and this little Tibetan practice. And what's my actual practice look like day to day? It's chaos because I'm just like, I do whatever I feel like doing. Whereas I'm now starting to see the value of just saying, I'm Zen, I'm a Zen monk, I'm going to do Zen every day because it actually goes deeper that way. Uh,
Yeah, I partly agree with that because for me, I went through the same, still going through the same things and mindsets with workouts. I've tried so many things during my life. I've been swimming, I've been weightlifting, I've done CrossFit, I've done so many things for months and years sometimes.
yeah.
And as a kid, I didn't have an active um, way of life at all. And so I've just, for me, it's a constant discovery. So I have my power workouts today, and I have my full body workouts, and I had my swimming before the pools were shut off during the Corona time. And these things are constantly evolving, changing, and it's, for me, it's totally okay. It doesn't mean um, that I'm not able to stick with them like I used to think I was. And
Mm.
I had a lot of guilt feelings about this. But instead I'm like, right, so this is what I like doing these times. And I do it 4 times a week, and it's healthy and it makes me feel great. At some point I might get bored. That's totally okay. I'm gonna find something else. As
Mm.
long as the basic rule of maintaining physical health is there.
Right.
And so is everything with our minds, with our the way we treat people around us. Um, this is when we have a basic set of values which guide us. I think we are much more prone to constantly develop as human beings, and this is what brings humanity forward. And the less we are prone to, um, you know, being just a bunch of robots following someone else's orders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would question whether it's because, you know, you clearly an exceptional person in being willing to do all this work and try different things and constantly learn. And I'm wondering, and I agree, it's a great way to live. I actually, this resonates with the thought I had a couple years ago, which is two forms of bravery. Uh, either to question everything or to trust everything. They're both very brave. And
Yeah.
and I think for some people it's much easier to trust everything than to question everything. Meaning, you know, okay, I'm a, let's say I'm a Buddhist monk. Tell me when to wake up. Tell me, you know, what to eat. Tell me how long to meditate. And it can be a wonderfully liberating experience. And the same in our world. Like, if you know, if you work for a cool startup that is well managed and they tell you, okay, you come in at 10, you do a stand-up meeting, then you code for this, and then there's a lovely lunch served, and then you code for 4 more hours, and then you go home. You don't have to think about work anymore, but here's a list of acceptable hobbies. You know,
This is no longer works like that. I think the most appreciated talent today are people who can't work that way. You know, this whole thing with when you work, during what hours, whether it's from home or from the office, even before Corona, like remote. Um, it's I think the most highly performing human capital is the type of people who are who need the goal, who need the purpose, who have the purpose, who understand what their purpose is, and then they use their skill set and their ability to develop themselves and get better at what they do to get to that goal, to get to that KPI.
okay. And yeah, no, I mean that makes sense to me, but that's not every. That's still not the majority of people. That's just very top.
See, here's the thing. I don't consider myself as a high achiever. Um, for instance, I don't like when that probably that's why it was weird for me to hear the way you introduced me, because suddenly it was like, whoa, that's a lot of things, and I don't see that. I'm not considering myself as a high achiever because nothing is easy. It's I'm in a constant struggle to maintain what works for me and to fight what's important for me. And I pay prices for that, and I invest time in it, and I invest my energy in those things. And I deliberately choose to continue doing those things, even though most of them don't pay off most of the time.
But for me, that's what defines. Um, that's what defines the top people, is they don't stay in their comfort zone. They don't, because the people who stay in their comfort zone produce as much as they're being told to produce, or as much as they can within a given profession. The people who push the boundaries are by definition bashing their heads against the unknown, because That's
or
where
against the known and feared of.
right. But again, against that, yeah, again, it against the walls of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and um, and that's how you grow, right? There's this Zen saying that I love. The obstacle is the path. The obstacle is not blocking the path. The obstacle is the path, dummy.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a great
and
saying.
yeah, I know, I love it. Keep getting back to it. There's no, so today, I mean, this was not true at all most of my life, but today when I play the violin badly, I and then I'm like, oh, and then I improve, and then I try again. I fully know that that's how I get better. That's the path of getting better. There's no other way to get better at the violin. There's no way that doesn't include playing badly.
Yeah. You can't hack it.
Right? And it's like this with life too. And I just had a conversation with a friend about his relationship, and he was complaining about all sorts of things that were hard. And I was like, and I'm not I'm not a great I'm not a great expert on relationship, but I was like, it sounds like the thing that's hard is all of those things that then make a relationship work. Is you're learning what she likes, she learning what you like, you're learning her limitations, she learning your limitation, making decisions that kind of make it work, and having uncomfortable discussions, and like that kind of sounds like what a relationship is like.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't have one. I don't want any of that. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, but uh, but it sounds like, yeah, it sounds like the obstacle is the path, like the
Yeah.
path
It's
to
like
religion.
it's like the saying that says that the happiness is not the end goal, but it's the path, right? Because people who are seeking happiness in the ways they're romanticizing happiness, and what happiness is like that. It's that distant destination that I will once get to
Right.
when this and that happens, and I have this amount of money and this amount of and this big of a house and this big of a job, and I'll live in whatever. Um, and in the meantime, the life passes, and even if they achieve all these goals, they will not be able to be happy because they don't know what happiness is.
Mm.
And so, happiness is a way of life. And it's the same with everything. Everything that happens is part of what it is. We choose how to react to it. We choose how to deal with it. We choose what to do with it. You know, you can easily see similar people with similar circumstances,
Yeah.
especially the bad ones, growing up in different ways, making different decisions, um, deciding whether they fall down to their comfort zone, um, and they have mediocre lives, or even worse than that. And then again, the neighbor of that person, or even the brother of that person who grew up in the exact same surroundings, might end up being somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this is a constant path, and trying to think where we want to go, unless it's a structured plan, is just kind of a, it's a you have to take it for what it is. It's a plan. It can be a
Right.
plan. It can be an idea. But as an entrepreneur, or as somebody who has worked for different companies, especially startups, you can see how many pivots you have in every company. You see how paths are changing, how circumstances are changing. Everything's changing constantly,
Yeah.
and we need that solid ground in ourselves to trust ourselves that we can deal with it, and
Yeah.
trust ourselves to do that, that we can maintain our core values while doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, there's this famous saying, "No plan survives contact with the enemy." It's a
Yeah.
famous. It's a general
Yeah.
And then there's another general. It was in MacArthur, a famous American general who said, "I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable."
Yeah.
Uh,
All of these are
so
true.
it's super interesting. I speak in aphorisms today. I quote a lot of people today. But so uh, yeah, so let's get back to you a little bit and um, how all these things. So first of all, I'd love to hear more about your EMT work, but I would also love to know about what's maybe we'll get to that kind of towards the end because it's kind of a nice to have. But I'm wondering what's alive in you today. What's driving you today to wake up and giving you energy and making you happy these days?
So I really, the fact is a lot of things have been changing lately. Um, I wasn't a venture. I was about to start a company. It was a startup company called Pause Room. Um, I'm speaking of it in the past tense, but it might change also. We'll
Let's see
see
how
how
it
that
goes.
works out. But the thing is that um, what the intention was to allow people to take a break during their um, workday in their offices in a way that is beneficial for their minds, but also for their productivity. It was an offline experience, um, and I think that common thing between all the things that I do, knowing that I wake up and I eventually end up bringing some more balance and comfort
Cool.
to people's restless minds. Um, this is something that really drives me these days. This is one of the reasons that I've decided to release a song for just a week ago. And the song is called "Okay," and the main line of the song is "Everything will be okay." And it was just a message that it was important for me to deliver to the people. This song was written before Corona times.
Cool.
This song was written. It was a way for me to comfort myself. That even that sometimes we don't know how things will play out. We just need to know that anyway, things are they're gonna be fine. We're gonna be
Yeah.
fine. A lot of things are gonna change. A lot of things are gonna be messed up and go to hell and then improve again and then go bad again. But eventually, it's gonna be okay. And people, we tend to forget that when in stress. Um, and so like that was more like it was my most natural outlet
Mhm.
and during these times because for me playing the piano is like meditating. This is the best meditation that I ever have.
Mhm.
If I'm in distress, I can just sit down and start playing, um, um, playing different stuff, not nothing specific even, until something comes up and it might become a song one day. So I'll just quickly like record it on my Apple Watch, just so that I don't forget it. Um, and so that's music.
Mhm.
Um, as an EMT, it's probably the closest thing that I have in helping people in distress. It's as simple as that. It's part of that. It's part of that thing. And I've been doing that for 10 years now.
Wow.
Um, um, and really, the 90% of the work as an EMT is not medical. It's strictly human.
Mhm.
The ability to calm a person down and just to reassure him that you're here to help and there's hope. sometimes it's even enough by itself to improve a person's health. And I'm speaking about specific metrics, about blood pressure and pulse and breathing. Um, it's really not. It has many medical aspects in it, but it's mostly just humans working with humans to help other humans. And so this is probably the purest thing. It's like the biggest thing that I can imagine. Like if I had the um, at some other life, I might be a doctor. I don't know, but the ways doctors are treated these days, in terms of salaries and um, the ability to be efficient at their work, I think it's not a place where I would like to be.
Mm.
And so I'm investing only part of my time in that. And these people are heroes, are true heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I've known quite a few doctors in my days, and yeah, it's they're heroes, but sometimes to the extent where you almost don't understand how they can do it.
yeah, it's impossible. It's
Yeah.
really
So
impossible. Even like all all the health workers. I see the EMTs who are employees, paid
yeah.
employees who work at that to do that for a living. Um, and I can't understand how they're still holding up.
You
The
mean these
men
days?
these days especially, but even in normal days, even in the regular days, again, define normal. The normals has changed, uh,
Yeah.
but uh, but the mental price people pay uh, for dealing with other humans' sorrow constantly, it has tremendous um,
Cost.
effects. It has
Yeah.
tremendous cost, tremendous effects on psychics. A lot of uh, PTSD researchers among EMTs worldwide are on um, suicides, whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember reading a lot about it when I was dating someone who was an emergency uh, worker, an emergency surgeon. But like, yeah, I mean, the effects are insane. I wish we could protect them more. I wish they got more treatment, more options for release, um, and, and maybe better balance of trauma to less traumatic work, where maybe there's some maybe you can't be the person who always gets the hopeless cases. Maybe you have to get some hopeless cases and some cases
So
that are likely to go well, or some balance.
here's the thing: most of the cases are going well.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's true. Yeah, hopefully.
More so,
Uh,
most of the cases are just okay. They're fine, but the
yeah,
mental burden, plus the fact that medical personnel doesn't people just don't get what they deserve in terms of salaries, in terms of work conditions. And we're back to kindness. It takes a government's priority to prioritize caring for other people higher than fighting other people.
yeah. Then
So then
killing
you
other people
see,
for the state.
yeah,
Yeah,
and with that change in mindset, you would probably understand how the budgets would move from army to healthcare systems, for instance. Um,
yeah,
and and that's I think that kind of sums up all the things that are wrong in the world. In my opinion, it's like the second when one changes its mind back and forth between making it better for people versus fighting for something, even phrasing the same mission in two different ways can make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, because eventually that's what you sell, even if your intentions are good. If your wording is negative, if your wording is harmful,
Yeah.
then many people will use that as an automatic opportunity to paraphrase it that way, and then the snowball is on again.
Yeah, it's extremely clear these days when you hear people go to war for social justice, or you know, or even the, the vegans who are too much on the like meat is murder.
Yeah.
So it's like you're fighting everyone else. You're at war with everyone else. You're not actually displaying empathy and caring for animals. What you're displaying is a lot of hatred and cynicism towards the rest of humanity. And definitely not all vegans are like that, because you meet a lot of vegans who are like, "Hey, eat this. This is going to be delicious for you."
But again,
Yeah,
the voices, the bad voices, are
yeah.
so much louder most of the times.
On social media, yeah,
Even if it's a minority,
yeah,
and usually it is. Usually it is.
yeah,
You can see that in war conflict. You can see that everywhere.
yeah. No, it's true, because these tools magnify, these platforms magnify Discord, because Discord creates engagement
Yep.
and clicks and advertising views. Um, and I actually this is something I wrote like about a year ago, where it's like Facebook's algorithm are optimizing for engagement. What is the highest form of engagement? Civil war. Civil war is the highest form of engagement. You're fully engaged, your emotions, your financial, your all your time. And so essentially Facebook was optimizing. I think actually they did a lot of good work changing their algorithms recently.
Yep.
But during 2016, they were optimizing for internal conflict. That's what they were. That was the thing that was generating the most engaged users.
That's the juice, man. That's the juice.
Yeah. Um, so I think one thing. So I have one thought about that. One last topic that I think would be interesting, and then if you want to explore anything else, bring it up. But uh, we were kind of talking about careers and putting it all together and finding your calling and finding the thing that resonates. And you seem to have a lot of thoughts, and to also be kind of thinking about how to help people find um, where they want to be in life, or what they. Is that something that you're thinking about?
Um, yeah, mostly.
So,
That's
yeah.
probably the thing that bothers me the most these days.
You mean personally?
Not only personally, but also on a global scale. I think that the question that should be asked more frequently is what kind of value I can bring to other people, and I can be as a person, I can be a company, I can be a state, I can be a movement. That I can be replaced with pretty much everything. Like, where does my true value lies? Where does it really lie?
Hmm.
I mean, and that's the thing, because when you start asking that question, suddenly you see that making advertisement for a living kind of sounds wacky. For
Yeah,
instance, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I've been doing that for a couple of years back in my days, but
right.
um, and yeah, so like why do we exist? What why, and it's like a huge question, why do we exist? You know, it sounds even cocky, but this really simple question is that what is my value?
Yeah.
Like, what is my true value? How can I make this place better? How can I make um, my girlfriend's day better? How can I make my dogs happy? Um, how can I make sure um, that I'm approachable? How can I make sure that is um, it's fun having me around? It's interesting having me around. It's you know, people feel how can I make sure that people can feel free to be authentic with me? Because then if
Yeah.
they're authentic, they're happier eventually. They're being more themselves. And again, it goes with my whole mission.
Yeah.
Um, so these are the questions that I think that humanity would be better off start asking more and more. Um,
Yeah.
and then from
There's this wonderful Japanese term, ikigai, I think.
yeah,
Is that, does that
I'm
sound
not sure
right?
that's the term, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Where, but I'll Google it later, but um, it's the convergence of what you like doing, what you're good at, and what the world needs.
yeah.
And it's the meeting point of all three. Um, and I think it's, yeah, I think it's so cool. But you were about to say something.
Yeah. So, and then in our world, we still have rules, right? We still need income to
Yeah,
maintain our lives.
yeah,
And then the question is, what's that? How can I combine these two? And I don't have an answer to that just now because my income is based off a retainer project, an ongoing retainer, which I have with a company. I'm happily in company, um, which makes a product which is made for web developers. It's a very technical product, but it also helps other people to accomplish their goals. Um, and so I see that as a mission there. And then, so there are still rules to play by, you know, or we could move to a much less expensive town or place to pay less rent so that we don't need to work full time or don't need to work that part time or um, lower our expenses. There are different things that can happen and are
yeah,
shifting, and people are learning right now. I think that during the Corona time, it's one of the opportunities that we have um, is to reflect on what's truly important and truly essential. Like, is ordering out so much is it essential? Because suddenly, for when we were not able to do that for a couple of weeks, or going out, it's like, yeah, we saved a lot of money.
and we were
That's
fine.
we were just fine. We were
Yeah,
cooking stuff at home all the
yeah, very
time,
delicious. Yeah,
not just part of the time. And it's really good. It brought us to more together time. It brought us to more experiments with food. And so, but that I have to put a really big uh, footnote there. I'm speaking from a very, I have a privilege, right? Because my income, I was lucky enough to maintain my stable income, even though my girlfriend was fired from her job. And so we were still fine. But a lot of people are not. And so I think that one of the things that I think a lot about is um, how can I better understand people who are in much more different situations than I am? Um, how
yeah,
can I understand the people who are less lucky? So I have some kind of tools. I have some set of tools in my tool set because, again, as an EMT, I got to, I got to try and bring some comfort to people in situations that I couldn't even imagine. Um, and and I think that during these times, I think these are a lot of questions that we have an opportunity to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, what should I do? Like what value do I bring? Like the
Yeah.
true value. Where's the value? It doesn't have to be my job. Ideally, it is. Um, and I do believe that it's possible because whenever, and it's something that many companies, startup companies and high tech companies forget, is that as long as you continue bringing value to other people, as long as that what drives you, you will always have demand.
Right.
As long as your focus is bringing true value to other people, you will always have demand. If you have demand, you'll be able to make money out of it. And it's not the other way around.
Yeah.
Because people find
Well,
hacks how to bring quick money, but
yeah.
they don't bring real value. So it doesn't hold that long.
Yeah. So I agree that the focus on value is super important. I am concerned that with AI, it's not going to be enough because, um, you can have a few big companies holding like all these crazy algorithms competing with pretty much everyone. Um, so
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
I'm
big
I'm I'm
it's a big
concerned.
buzzword. It's a big buzzword because eventually AI is just one other tool. It's a subset of tools, very complicated tools, but which are still guided by ideas, still guided by core values. Hopefully good
Well,
ones.
yeah, yes and no. So I'm deep into the world of AI. I think it's probably not that in the next few years we have to worry about it too much, but we are seeing more and more humans being rendered obsolete by AI. And so there was this uh, guy on the news, this falafel stand owner that was crying on the news because he
Yeah,
couldn't open his,
I've seen that
and
piece. Yeah,
it was famous. It was everywhere. It was
yeah,
everywhere for a while. And I was looking at him, and first of all, just felt really, really sorry for him because I mean, the guy was basically said, "I don't know how to live. I have no money. I have no options. My vendors won't sell to me. The police won't let me open my shop. I don't know how to live." And he was crying, and this person has come to symbolize so much for me. It's hard to unpack, but the first thing that he symbolized for me is um, there are, the first thought that came to my mind after kind of feeling sorry for him is, but there's so many options that this guy's not seeing, right? Uh, there's Walt and there's this, and and just sell something else. Don't sell falafel. Like there's so many ways to adapt. But and then it was like, okay, why doesn't he do it? And then I realized not everyone wants to adapt, is able to adapt. Um, you know, a, a person's identity could get wrapped up in, I've always been able to support my family doing this, doing X, and now I'm going to do something brand new. It's super scary. Um, and a person's emotions could get overwhelmed, right? So he can't think clearly because just fear has taken over. And um, but there's more and more people in our society that are losing their jobs, um, and have to make radical adaptations because their jobs just no longer exist. And this is not fiction. There's 51% of jobs that are at risk in the next 10 years, according to economists and many.
yeah.
And um, and so, are these truck drivers really good? Are they going to become coders? No. Are they going to become designers? No. Are they what? of the shrinking pool of jobs, what are they? So I do think that a lot of them could become small business owners or some sort of freelance workers or some sort of business owners, but that's a massive mind shift.
Yeah, yeah.
I have friends who are trying to be entrepreneurs and can't hack the psychology
Yeah,
of dealing
so
with uncertainty.
there are more angles to this, because as the humanity evolves and as our technology evolves, so has to so had the economy model has to evolve as well. So all the concepts of universal basic income will help with those, like making sure that people can still live a decent living and and maintain their health, and uh, make sure that their kids are educated, and make sure they have a place to live in and food to eat. So these are the concepts are the angles are ridiculously wide on these things.
Right.
And every revolution that took place historically had casualties, had people who were not willing to adapt, and
Sure.
it's our nature. Sometimes I don't know how to adapt to new things, um, and it happens all the time, and it will continue to happen. We are wired to overthink. We are wired to base our um, prognosis on based on past data.
Right.
We are hardwired to do that. We are hardwired to overthink potential outcomes without seeing many other possibilities. Um, this is the way our minds are built. We can't fight it. Everyone on his own. So the question that I'm trying to ask myself is, how can I be a better person, a better human being today than I was yesterday? Um,
Yeah.
on all levels. And then if I manage to do just one thing, just one small thing to advance myself, I know I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. No, and I think that perspective is really important. And as an individual, um, that's super helpful. I am wondering on a societal level whether some people are going to be able to do it. And we already know that about 50% of the population are conservative by nature.
Yep.
Uh, and and the problem is the future is going to be, and this is pretty much widely agreed, not staying the same for very long. It's going to constantly change more and more.
Yep.
Uh, and so what do conservative people do when reality is swept underneath their feet? And the one skill that they need is they think they hate, which is constantly adapt to new realities. Because
So
I
here's the
enjoy it. I actually kind of enjoy it,
I
but not
don't.
everybody. Okay.
I don't, to be honest. Um, but I don't. I would easily fall down to any comfort zone. I fight myself every day to not let that happen, because I know this is not what will make me happy ever. Staying in a comfort zone. I've been in very dark places in my mind, in my past, both mentally and healthily. It's like, and I've been there. It's not fun in there. Um, and so let's not forget that every person has his own journey. I couldn't have done the things that I do today 5 years ago. I wasn't ready. I wasn't at that place. It took me uh, a long journey to get where I am today, and it had a lot of amplitude from uphills to down to hell. And so this journey, at some points in my journey, I was desperate. Some points in my journey, I didn't know what to do. I was crying out loud, not knowing what my next step is, where I'm gonna be. And so like, so in every one of us has experienced at some level that point where that falafel guy was at that point
Sure.
when that video was shot.
Sure.
And we don't know. We unfortunately we don't get to follow up on that guy in a couple of years from now to hear that success story. It rarely happens because it's
Oh,
not
we
interesting.
we already know he got
Could,
a lot of orders after that, and he got a lot of money, offers of
yeah,
money, but
that's very temporary because the mindset is still there.
yeah.
So he got a patch probably. But the thing is that even at our darkest moments, we have the opportunity still.
Yeah.
And I've seen people getting out of drug issues, of family issues, and of health issues and mental issues. I've seen people coming back from hell. So I know that's possible. I've also seen people who couldn't get out of there, and I know that can happen too.
Yeah.
And so, one of the I can't imagine. We're easy to judge other people always. We're easy to judge, especially the government, and all these people in higher places than we are. It's like, why would you do that? You should do that instead. Like, we're so smart.
Yeah.
And just imagine, as a president of any country, not just US, which is like humongous,
Yeah.
having the commitment and having the responsibility over so many people, over lives of so many different people who came from different backgrounds, different settings, different starting points, different circumstances. And you're there because you need to make sure that they have the best lives that they can have. And you're prone to fail all the time because you can never get everybody satisfied. You can never all the good that you do would only be seen in retrospect decades forward.
For sure.
Maybe.
In the best case ever, yeah.
It depends on who writes the history books at that time.
That's right. No, I think about it all the time. It's like super. We like to flatten things. We like to make things black or white and super simple. And the reality never looks like that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. That was the end of my point. So eventually, and we can go talking for hours about what's bad in the world or what can change. But eventually, we will always end up at a point which is way more modest and way more specific to ourselves. We will always end up in a place of, okay, so there's so many things. Give me an example. So there's so many wrong things about the world. What do you mean the world? So let's say in my country, there's this and that and that. Okay, so in your whole country, no, but in my town, it's like that these things are not working. And then you narrow it down to your neighborhood and to your specific building, and then you end up with yourself eventually. Understanding that, okay, so the only thing that I can actually do is be a better person myself and be kind to different people, and then you suddenly see that influence going on because even if you just smile randomly at other people, they will smile back at you, most of them. So for instance, if when I'm walking, the easiest example in that is the simplest act of kindness is a smile, right? 'Cause I'm walking, and now with the masks, it's much harder, but you can still see the eyes. But in general, when I walk our dogs, and we have two German shepherds, they look like scary beasts if you don't know them. They're the fluffiest, but you don't know that, right?
But,
And so when I see another person coming towards me with a dog, they're like, okay, I'm gonna probably skip to the other side of the road, unless they like at some point you have that 1 second of eye contact where they try to like cure, like, is your dog okay, without asking, is your dog okay, is like, is it friendly, are you, it's what's going on here, trying to like test the situation really quick. And I always smile at that point, because I know my dogs are fine, and even if not, I can take control of them. I can like have a training session and give them treats and etc. And so I'll smile, and then I immediately see relief on the other person's face, and
yeah,
and
that
it's
makes sense.
and suddenly it's like, oh, it's okay to just pass you by. Yeah, it's everything is fine.
Yeah,
But instead, I could go like, whoa, aren't everybody smiling? What's going on?
yeah,
What's wrong with this place?
yeah.
And so
I,
it's and it's not something that I know I wish I could practice that more frequently, but it's constant hard work of maintaining that mindset.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It for me comes and goes. I when I'm in periods of deep meditation, I feel like I'm like putting love into the universe like all the time. When I go shopping and I always have a smile and super friendly. And then in times where I'm struggling with something,
yeah,
it's like nothing. And the difference in reactions is also radical.
yeah,
So there was a time when I was meditating a lot during that time, and I always had a big smile on my face, and I would get free food wherever I go. Like, like I'd go to the supermarket, I'd order at the deli something, and they'd give me something extra for free. But it was just like extreme. Like everyone, like for a while, I was like, oh my god, and people were getting into conversations with me, and like, and then some other times it just does not happen at all, or I even get like negative, especially if I'm like thinking about something, obsessing about something, then I'm putting this obsessive energy out there. But no, it's incredible when when you see someone who doesn't expect to be seen because they're in a service job, and just for a second you just see them as a person, and you say hi, and you have a normal conversation,
yeah, yeah.
and you leave and you see that they're still smiling, or that they're like you see that you have
And
you
there is also a chain reaction. Like
right,
if you're
and they pass it on.
you're stuck
Yeah.
in traffic, and then someone tries to like kind of like asking you to get into your lane,
Right.
and if you're kind enough to just let him in and like show him the way, like you get here, welcome, you'll see that 2 minutes after that, another one is trying to another guy will try to drive into that guy's lane before that guy, and he'll be as generous as you were,
Mm.
and the opposite will also work. So it's a chain reaction which will probably exponentially grow and influence uh,
Yeah.
many people. Um, and regarding your example of noticing people, um, it's like um, if I would like try to summarize what I would love to live by, is that and it really helped me you know disregard my eager to buy unnecessary stuff, for instance, or clutter or everything. Is like there are two things that are worth investing money and time in: experiences and relationships.
Mm.
These are the only two things that are worth our attention and money. This is
Yeah, I agree with that.
if it's something that I could, you know, always remember to live by, I think I would be eternally happy.
Though experiences can be very broad because everything is essentially an experience. Like even buying a Lamborghini is an experience, right? But uh,
Yeah, and yeah,
is it a good experience or
it is an experience. It is an
right?
experience. You
Yeah.
know, I went skydiving once. It's a one hell of experience. Is it necessary for an essential type of life? No,
Hmm.
but it's a great experience. Um,
I love buying things that give me lots of small moments of happiness. Um, where like it's completely out of relationship to the price. So um, my biggest example recently is the violin. Uh, so I knew so I spent a little bit more. It's a student violin, so it's cheap, but I definitely spent a little bit more to get the better violin because I knew that every time I touched it, I would feel this rush of enjoyment because it's slightly more refined than the cheapest violin. And also when you play it, it just sounds a little bit better in a way that actually makes me want to keep playing.
yeah,
Um,
I have a spoiler for you.
yeah,
At some point, you'll understand that the backwards is the right way. Because um, I had equipments worth of thousands and thousands of dollars, sound equipment mostly, super expensive guitars. Um, I ended up trading them for way cheaper models for very essential things, and I've never been happier.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, this is the equivalent of the simple things.
especially
Yeah,
especially in musical instruments,
yeah,
especially in acoustic musical instruments, because where the sound is just a matter of whether that specific piece was taken of the right piece of wood can make the
right.
whole difference.
Oh, for sure. I agree with that completely. But this is the equivalent. So I I had a guitar. I used to play guitar in high school, and I had a very cheap guitar. And then my parents came back from Spain and brought me not a super expensive guitar, but definitely a better guitar that they bought in Spain. And and just my I went from not liking to play to really constantly playing because it
Yeah,
just sounded right. And with this violin, it essentially was following my feelings. Essentially, it was like I had two violins, and one just my heart sang when I saw it. It looked beautiful. I played it, and it's still the you know it's a student violin. They're not expensive, uh, but I play this every day. But even when I don't play it, um, uh, even when I don't play it, I look at it and it makes me happy. Like and there's little things like that's when that's actually when I spend more. I usually get regular stuff. Like if you look at my furniture, much of it is IKEA furniture because I love first of all I love IKEA as a brand. It's hackable. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's not expensive, but it's good quality. But then I would buy a high quality microphone
yeah.
that's going to stay with me for years, or I'm going to buy a violin that's going to stay with me for years. Um, and and that's where I actually am a little bit more materialistic. I'm like, no, this is here for years. This is
So
thousands of moments.
that's a slightly different thing, you know, because my father used to say, um, "We're not rich enough to buy cheap things."
Yeah.
And so investing in quality is something that I definitely cherish. Question is, where's the threshold?
Yeah.
right? Where does it become unnecessary?
Yeah.
And the magic is to understand where that line goes.
And it
That
might be individual, and it kind of depends on
definitely,
everyone. So,
definitely. And so, you know, once you, as a musician, once you had to have the best equipment, the best brands, and there are still people in studios like that. But then again, eventually, the next pop song that will hit the, even a good one, that might hit the charts, might be actually developed in, you know, in a basement somewhere
right.
with a laptop and a small keyboard, and that's
Yep.
it. You
Yep.
know, the Beatles had really crappy guitars back then when they wrote their songs.
Oh, the
And so
first
back,
songs, the first records.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And
I agree. No, I think I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. So, Fade, I think we could do this. I think we could do this forever. I think we could definitely do more sessions like this.
I'd love
I don't
to.
know if
Yeah.
I actually don't know if anybody saw this. We're gonna close this down, and then I'm gonna open Facebook and YouTube and see if anybody actually was on these feeds, or maybe it actually broke in the middle like last time. But I
Oh,
have a recording. I have a recording, so so I can put it out there anyway.
it
But
still
thanks so
says
much.
live on Facebook up there, so I don't know.
Yeah, that it did last time too, and then I went to Facebook and it was like 8 seconds.
They might be just
So
hard coded in there, you know.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but
Yeah.
I feel like this was fun, and I hope this was interesting to people who've listened, or you know, if anybody hears this, I hope you enjoyed it. Um, and um, and yeah, this is the kind of conversation where I like it because it's design, but it's also life,
Yeah.
uh, and that's what I care about.
Design
So
is life. Design is just, you know, one angle of looking at life.
design is evolution by other means. Uh,
Yeah, okay, I could live with that. Anyway, it was super
Whatever.
fun. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having
Yeah.
me.
Thanks, Fade. And yeah, and hopefully we'll have more chances to do this.
Sure thing. I'd
All
love
right.
to.
Thanks, man.
Bye
See ya.
bye.